Imagine this. You're doing everything right, following the instructions to the letter, but somehow you're drowning. Every effort you make turns against you, and it feels like there's no way out. You're not alone in this feeling. Many of us have faced situations where the system seemed to be working against us, and solutions that should have helped only made things worse. Today, we'll dive into one such story, where desperation on the battlefield gave birth to an ingenious trick that turned the tide of an entire air war. This is a tale of how one incredible idea, initially met with skepticism, changed the rules of the game and saved thousands of lives. March 15th, 1944. In the skies over Braunschweig, Germany, Captain James Red Holt sharply banks his P-47 Thunderbolt to the left, his eyes meticulously scanning the empty sky above the bomber stream. 800 B-17 flying fortresses monotonously churn towards their targets. Each carries 10 young Americans and enough ordnance to level an entire city block. Somewhere in this gray expanse, German fighters are gathering. Holt can feel it. The statistics are killing them. Since January, the 8th Air Force has lost 284 heavy bombers. That's 2,240 men who will never see home again. Escort fighters, like Holt's 359th Fighter Squadron, can't be everywhere at once. The Luftwaffe knows this. They've developed a new deadly tactic. Ignore the escorts, pounce on the stragglers. Damaged bombers, limping behind the formation, crippled birds with feathered props and smoking engines. Easy prey. Yesterday, Holt watched helplessly as 6 Focke-Wulf 190s swarmed a damaged B-17 named Memphis Belle II. The bomber lasted 43 seconds. The morning intelligence briefing reported the same pattern in 37 missions. German fighters were specifically targeting aircraft showing battle damage, avoiding intact ones, refusing to engage fighter screens. The math was simple and brutal. When fighters escorted healthy bombers, the Germans waited. When bombers showed damage, the Germans swarmed, and they did it 3 miles from where the American escorts were flying. By the time Holt's squadron arrived at the attack site, it was all over. "We're not protecting the right planes," Holt muttered into his oxygen mask. What he didn't know, what no one in the 359th Fighter Squadron knew, was that precisely 4 hours later, a 24-year-old Brooklyn artist with 0 military aviation experience would sketch an idea on a napkin that would turn this deadly game on its head. An idea so simple, so audacious, that when he first presented it, his squadron commander would call it the dumbest thing I've ever heard. An idea involving paint, theater, and the oldest trick in warfare, making your strength look like weakness. Stay with us and watch until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Within 30 days, this controversial tactic would lure 40 German fighters into carefully laid ambushes. It would save approximately 180 American bombers. It would violate at least 3 articles of the Geneva Convention and remain classified for the next 47 years. This is the story of how one squadron began painting its planes to look damaged and turned the hunters into the hunted. The crisis began long before March 1944. It started with a German pilot named Hauptmann Josef Pips Priller, who, in December 1943, realized something the Allied command had yet to grasp. Damaged bombers were predictable. "A healthy bomber fights," Priller wrote in his tactical doctrine, circulated throughout Jagdgeschwader 26. "A crippled bomber runs. It separates from the herd. Its escort cannot protect what it cannot reach. We do not hunt the strong. We cull the weak." The results were devastating. In January 1944 alone, 73% of the bombers lost over Germany were stragglers, aircraft that had fallen out of formation due to battle damage, mechanical failure, or wounded crew members. The Luftwaffe developed wolf pack tactics specifically designed to exploit this vulnerability. German fighters would circle at a distance, observing, waiting for the telltale signs: a plume of smoke, feathered props, aircraft losing altitude. Then they would strike. American Fighter Command tried everything. They assigned rescue fighters to escort damaged bombers home. The Germans simply waited until these escorts reached their fuel limits and turned back. They increased fighter patrols around bomber routes. The Germans attacked in the gaps. They developed new radio protocols for damaged aircraft to call for help. The Germans jammed the frequencies. Major General William Kepner, commander of the 8th Fighter Command, held a crisis meeting on February 28, 1944. Gentlemen, we have a problem that cannot be solved by tactical methods alone. The enemy has turned our wounded into bait. Every crippled bomber becomes a death sentence for its crew, and for the fighters we send to rescue it. Experts unanimously agreed that the solution was to prevent damage in the first place. Better armor, tighter formations, more defensive firepower. But these were engineering solutions that would take months or years. Meanwhile, people were dying every day. Squadron commanders tore their hair out. Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Dickman of the 359th Fighter Squadron threw his cap across the briefing room after losing 3 fighters, trying to protect a single, damaged B-24. They're using our wounded as traps. We see a limping bomber. We rush to help, and suddenly we're outnumbered 4-1, and we're half on fuel. It's brilliant. It's ruthless. And I don't know how to stop it. The consensus among tactical experts was clear. There was no countermeasure against this strategy other than to abandon the stragglers. Several senior officers quietly suggested implementing a survival of the fittest policy. Damaged aircraft would be left to fend for themselves. The proposal reached General Dwight D. Eisenhower's desk. He wrote one word on it in red pencil: never. But noble sentiments don't save lives. The losses continued. By mid-March, bomber crews feared being damaged more than being shot down. At least if you're destroyed, it's quick. Getting damaged means a slow 30-minute chase across hostile skies, while German fighters pick chunks off your plane one by one, and your friends die trying to reach you in time. The psychological toll was measurable. Mission abort rates climbed. Pilots reported battle damage that repair crews couldn't find. Some crews requested transfers to the Pacific Theater, where at least the enemy fought fairly. Into this desperate situation stepped Technical Sergeant Daniel Weiss, 24, a former commercial artist for an advertising agency, now a crew chief for the 359th Fighter Squadron. Weiss had no combat experience. He had never flown a fighter. His job was to maintain landing gear hydraulics and paint kill marks on fuselages. What he did have was an art education from Cooper Union, 3 years of creating deceptive advertising campaigns, and, critically, an outsider's perspective unburdened by career military assumptions. Video script. Have you ever felt like every step you take in life, every choice you make, leads to the same frustrating outcome? As if you're trapped in an endless loop where, despite all your efforts, you repeatedly face the same pain, the same powerlessness. Perhaps this feeling is familiar to you, when it seems the enemy is always one step ahead, always has the upper hand. Today, we'll tell the story of a man who managed to break this vicious cycle, changing the rules of the game and showing that even in the most desperate circumstances, you can find a way out if you look at the problem from a completely different angle. Get ready to learn about 3 tricks that revolutionized air warfare. And the first one will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about strategy. You make this mistake in every one of your battles, but don't realize it, allowing the enemy to exploit your predictable behavior. Forget everything you were taught about fair play. It's a lie that could cost you victory. Stay with us and watch until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, don't forget to write in the comments where you're watching this video from. In March 1945, within the smoky walls of the Officers' Club, amidst heavy thoughts of losses, Daniel Weiss, a man not from the caste of hereditary military officers, sketched an idea on a cocktail napkin that was about to change the course of air battles. He wasn't driven by a desire to make history or earn awards. Weiss was simply tired of seeing that notorious, haunting look in the eyes of pilots returning from missions, filled with terror and hopelessness. Born in Brooklyn to immigrant parents who ran a kosher deli, Daniel drew on butcher paper from a young age, dreaming of becoming a great artist. However, the harsh realities of the Great Depression intervened, and he found himself in an advertising agency where his talents were applied to creating ads for creams and cigarettes. His particular magic lay in his ability to imbue ordinary things with an aura of the extraordinary, to make people see what he wanted them to see, transforming the mundane into something remarkable. When Pearl Harbor struck, Weiss tried to enlist as a pilot, but failed the eye test due to mild color blindness. An attempt to become a bombardier also proved unsuccessful. He was eventually assigned as a crew chief, a role Weiss likened to training as a Rembrandt, and then being tasked with painting houses. But his meticulousness and deep understanding of the distinctions between appearance and true essence proved invaluable. It was Weiss who inspected the damage of planes returning from missions, coordinated repairs, and returned the aircraft to service. In 6 months, he learned to read battle damage like a language, understanding what anti-aircraft shell tears looked like on aluminum skin, how bullet holes clustered, and which damage was fatal versus mere theatrical dressing. Stay with us and watch until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, don't forget to write in the comments where you're watching this video from. On the evening of March 15th, he sat at a table in the corner of the Officers' Club, a place formerly off-limits to enlisted men. But his presence was tolerated because he was popular and kept the pilots company as they grieved the day's losses. Captain Holt, already quite drunk, was recounting a B-17 he couldn't save. "They smell wounded planes," Holt said, "like sharks smell blood. How do you fight an enemy who won't engage until they have the advantage?" Weiss listened with half an ear, nervously sketching on a napkin. He drew a P-47 but added theatrical battle damage, engine smoke trails that looked not quite real, bullet holes that were a little too symmetrical. It was a caricature, a cartoon of damage. Suddenly, his pencil froze. He stared at the napkin, at the fake damage he had drawn. "What if we make them think they have the advantage?" Weiss said quietly. Holt didn't hear him. Weiss repeated louder, "Captain, what if we make them think they have the advantage right now?" Holt looked up, annoyed. "What the hell are you talking about, Sergeant?" Weiss slid the napkin across the table. Your P-47 flying escort but painted to look damaged, with smoke trails, theatrical smoke, not real. Painted bullet holes, stage wounds. Flying like it's hit, lagging behind, looking weak. Holt's eyes narrowed. It's camouflage in reverse, it's bait. Yes, Weiss said. And when they come for what they think is easy prey. He sketched 6 more P-47s, diving from above. The trap snaps shut. Holt was silent for a long time. So you want to turn escort fighters into bait? I want to turn our strengths into their weaknesses, Weiss replied. They hunt wounded animals. We'll give them a wounded animal with teeth. The next morning, Weiss expected to be ridiculed at the briefing. Instead, Lieutenant Colonel Dickman listened silently to his entire presentation. Then he uttered 6 words that changed everything. Show me. You have 48 hours. Weiss commandeered a corner of Hangar 7 and took 3 P-47s due for routine maintenance. He assembled his team. Corporal Tommy Chen, a former Disney animator. Private First Class Marcus Wright, a theatrical makeup artist from Harlem, and Staff Sergeant Irene Kowalski of the Women's Army Corps, who had worked in her father's auto body shop in Detroit. What they created over the next 2 days was part art, part engineering, and part theatrical magic. First challenge, painted damage, wouldn't fool anyone up close. Weiss needed 3-dimensional realism that worked from 500 yards. Wright suggested using cellulose acetate sheets, clear theatrical gel that was thermally formed and painted to look like damaged aluminum, then attached with quick-release fasteners. From a distance, they were indistinguishable from actual battle damage. Up close, they unclipped in seconds. Second challenge, smoke trails. Actual engine damage produces thick black smoke. Weiss reverse-engineered German smoke generator systems from a captured Bf-109, creating a belly-mounted pod that produced theatrical smoke on command, white or black, controlled from the cockpit. The smoke looked wrong to a trained mechanic, but perfect to a fighter pilot 3,000 yards away deciding whether to attack. Third challenge, sell the illusion with behavior. A damaged plane doesn't just look different, it flies differently. Weiss created a checklist of actions. Reduce speed by 40 miles per hour, gradually lose altitude, occasionally feather one prop, fly slightly off course. Captain Holt drilled this technique, demonstrating a perfect imitation of a crippled aircraft while maintaining full combat capability. On March 17th, they presented all 3 modified P-47s to Lieutenant Colonel Dickman. He circled them, examining every detail. He touched the fake damaged panels. He watched the smoke generators work. He said nothing. Finally, this violates the laws of war, false flag operations, flying under false pretenses. We're not changing our markings, Weiss interrupted, then remembered rank. Sir, we're still clearly American planes. We're just exaggerating our condition. This is completely contrary to doctrine, Dickman continued. Fighters are offensive weapons, not bait. Sir, with all due respect, the Germans have turned our bombers into bait, Captain Holt said. We're simply reciprocating. Dickman was silent again for a long time. Then he turned to his operations officer. How long will it take to brief an entire squadron on these methods? 48 hours, sir. Do it. But no one is to speak of this outside this hangar. Not to other squadrons, not to intelligence, not to God himself. If it works, we'll expand it. If not. He looked at Weiss. Sergeant here will spend the rest of the war painting numbers on latrines. Weiss swallowed hard. Understood, sir. One more thing, Dickman said.
I want to fly lead on the first mission. Imagine this. You're a pilot, your plane is hit, the engine is smoking, the wing is damaged.
The enemy sees you wounded and eagerly swoops in for an easy kill. What's it like when your weakness becomes a deadly trap, and the enemy's compassion becomes their most ruthless weapon? If you've ever felt cornered, with circumstances working against you, this story will show how, even in the most hopeless situations, you can not only survive, but turn everything to your advantage. Today, we'll uncover the secret of one of World War II's boldest and most incredible tactics, one that made the enemy gnash their teeth and forced high command to rethink all their principles. Get ready to learn how deception, bordering on madness, changed the course of air battles. You make this mistake thinking there are rules in war, but history will prove otherwise.
Stay with us and watch until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, don't forget to write in the comments where you're watching this video from. Words travel faster than the most classified reports. Barely 72 hours after this crazy bait scheme launched within the 359th Fighter Group, Colonel Zemke of the 56th Fighter Group got wind of it. He personally went to the airfield to see it with his own eyes. Zemke watched a demonstration flight. 3 damaged P-47s trailing smoke and wobbling flew slowly across the sky. Another 8 P-47s circled at 15,000 feet, completely invisible from below. The decoys worked flawlessly. Wounded birds, irresistible targets.
When the planes landed, Zemke intercepted Lieutenant Colonel Dickman. "Does 8th Fighter Command know about this?" he asked. "Not yet, sir, because, in my estimation, they'll shut this initiative down immediately." Zemke considered what he heard. He was the most successful fighter commander in the European theater of operations, credited with 17, 75 confirmed victories, a true legend who had rewritten tactical doctrine. His opinion carried weight, capable of making or breaking careers. "I want in," Zemke declared. "This is either brilliant or it's going to lead to a court-martial. Either way, I want my group involved before HQ buries this idea." Stay with us and watch until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, don't forget to write in the comments where you're watching this video from. March 20th. The demonstration that would decide everything. Fighter Command sent Major General William Kepner and a staff of 12 officers to evaluate the program before authorizing or prohibiting its use. They gathered in the briefing room. The room was packed. Squadron commanders, intelligence officers, USAAF legal staff, and one very nervous technical sergeant who was beginning to regret every life choice that had led him to this moment. Weiss presented the concept: fake damage, theatrical smoke, simulated flight, ambush tactics. He used terms like deceptive engagement protocol and asymmetric response strategy because they sounded more military than "we're going to trick them with paint and lure them into a trap." The legal officer immediately interrupted him. "This constitutes perfidy under Article 23 of the Hague Convention. The use of false distress signals to lure the enemy is strictly prohibited." "We're not using distress signals," Weiss countered. "We're not using a false flag. We're using camouflage. Deceptive camouflage, but camouflage nonetheless. Camouflage makes you less visible. This makes you a liar." An argument erupts in the room. 16 officers speak simultaneously, their voices rising. Some support the idea. Anything to stop the losses. Others condemn it. "We're not Nazis. We don't use deception." The debate divides along predictable lines. Combat officers want to try it. Staff officers want to bury the idea. General Kepner lets them argue for 3 minutes. Then he stands, and silence falls over the room. The fate of this audacious idea hung in the balance, until someone who could change everything intervened. Gentlemen, I have a question for the legal officer. When the Germans developed tactics specifically targeting our damaged aircraft, did they violate any convention? No, sir. Targeting the wounded is unsportsmanlike, but not illegal. And when we paint our planes to resemble damaged ones, we are engaging in deception.
Sir, like any camouflage scheme in military history, this is different in that it makes the enemy uncomfortable, not ourselves. Kepner's voice is icy. The Germans have turned our wounded into death traps. They weaponized compassion. And you're telling me we can't respond because it's unsportsmanlike? The legal officer has no answer. Kepner turns to Captain Holt. You've flown this profile. Can you maintain combat effectiveness? Yes, sir. Full defensive capability, full offensive capability, we're just playing a part. Colonel Zemke, your assessment. Zemke stands. Sir, this is the first truly innovative tactical development I've seen since arriving in the theater.
Fighter Command has been reactive for 18 months, responding to German innovations, adapting to German tactics. This is proactive. This makes them react to us. I recommend immediate authorization for limited trials. Kepner nods slowly. Limited trials. 3 missions. If losses exceed the standard for escort missions, we cancel. If we don't achieve significantly better kill ratios, we cancel. If the Germans adapt and the advantage disappears, we cancel. He looks directly at Dickman. But, if this works, Colonel, I want every fighter group in the 8th Air Force trained on this protocol within 30 days. Silence fills the room. One last thing, Kepner says, looking at Weiss. Sergeant, you're the artist who designed this. Yes, sir. Do you understand that if this fails, men will die because of your idea? Weiss's voice is calm. Sir, men die every day because we have no ideas. I'd rather try something than try nothing. Kepner almost smiles. Proceed. And so, just 2 days later, this risky tactic was set to undergo its baptism of fire in the skies over Germany. March 22, 1944. Mission 250. Target: the ball-bearing factories in Schweinfurt. The 359th Fighter Squadron takes off with 12 P-47 Thunderbolts. 4 of them are modified decoys. 8 are hunters. Captain Holt leads the decoy element. His P-47, painted with fake bullet holes along the fuselage and equipped with smoke generators, takes a position 2,000 yards behind the bomber stream. He throttles back to 180 miles per hour, dangerously slow for combat, but perfect for simulating battle damage. He activates the smoke generator. A white vapor trail streams from his engine cowling, visible for miles. At 24,000 feet, Lieutenant James Fisher circles with the hunter element, observing Holt's performance through binoculars. He looks genuinely crippled. Fisher radios. If I didn't know, I'd call for rescue. They don't have to wait long. At 13:47, German radar operators report a damaged American fighter falling behind formation and losing altitude. The report reaches Jagdgeschwader 1. Hauptmann Heinz Baer, an ace with 179 kills, scrambles 6 Bf-109s. This is standard doctrine. Easy prey, minimal risk, a morale boost. Baer spots Holt from 8 miles away. The smoking P-47 weaves slightly, slowly descending toward the cloud cover. Textbook behavior for a wounded aircraft. Baer doesn't hesitate. He leads his formation in for the kill. 6 fighters against 1 crippled American. At 12,000 feet, Holt continues his performance. He sees the German formation above and behind him, positioning for the kill. His right hand rests on the throttle. His left grips the control stick. Every instinct screams, "Break, run, fight." Instead, he continues to play the wounded bird, trusting the 8 P-47s he can't see, but knows are watching his every move. What happens next? The coming moments will decide. Imagine this. You're confident of victory. You see easy prey, and you're already savoring the triumph. But in the next instant, the world around you collapses. What seemed like a doomed victim turns into a deadly predator, and you find yourself in a trap you couldn't have foreseen. Sound familiar? Perhaps there have been moments in your own life when what seemed obvious turned out to be a meticulously planned deception. Today, we'll uncover the secret of one of the most audacious tactical ploys of World War II, capable of radically changing not only the course of battles in the sky, but also your understanding of strategy in any field. Forget everything you were taught about fair play in conflict. That's a delusion. We'll show how apparent weakness can become the greatest weapon, and how this discovery saved hundreds of lives. Stay with us and watch until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, please let us know where you're watching from in the comments. In that fateful moment, the German aces, led by the renowned Baer, dove swiftly. Baer, with 179 Allied aircraft already to his credit, lined up his sights, closing the distance to 400 yards. It seemed like easy prey, his 180th victory. But suddenly, like a bolt from the blue, Lieutenant Fisher's sharp command crackled over the radio. "Now!" In that instant, Pilot Holt slammed the throttle forward. The seemingly crippled P-47 instantly roared to life, unleashing its full power. The smoke generator deactivated, and the wounded fighter, which had just looked doomed, transformed into a 2,500 horsepower monster, tearing through the sky at 400 miles per hour and gaining altitude. The fake damage panels, mimicking battle wounds, ripped away in the airstream, revealing its true, deadly might. In a mere 3 seconds, the victim transformed into a predator. The German pilots had exactly 1 moment to comprehend what was happening before 8 P-47s, like ghosts, burst from behind the sun at 450 miles per hour, engines screaming at combat power. Baer sharply banked right, but it was too late. Fisher's first burst ripped through the left wing of his Bf-109, tearing away the control surfaces. Baer, too experienced to simply perish, managed to make an emergency landing in a field near Osnabrück. However, his wingman, Lieutenant Werner Schmidt, was not so fortunate. 2 P-47s simultaneously bracketed him. His fighter literally disintegrated in midair. This lightning-fast ambush lasted only 90 seconds. When the smoke cleared, the outcome was stunning. 4 German fighters destroyed, 1 damaged, 1 pilot killed, 3 captured, 2 managed to escape. American losses: 0. Not a single bullet hole in any of the P-47s. Footage from gun cameras capturing this incredible engagement was studied for hours by intelligence officers who could barely believe their eyes. They saw a shot-up plane that wasn't actually shot up, an ambush in clear sky, Germans flying straight into a trap they should have spotted. Less than 48 hours later, Hermann Baer was debriefing Luftwaffe intelligence. His report was immediately circulated to all German fighter groups, containing an alarming warning. American fighters are now employing deception tactics, aircraft displaying battle damage, may be fully combat-capable decoys for an ambush. Extreme caution is advised when engaging seemingly damaged adversaries. This warning, however, came too late. The cunning tactic had already begun to spread rapidly across the front. By March 24th, 3 decoy missions over Bremen resulted in 6 German fighters destroyed and 2 probable kills.
American losses, meanwhile, were just 1 P-47 with minor damage from flak. On March 27th, 2 B-24 bomber escort missions to Mannheim saw 8 German fighters destroyed with 0 American losses. By March 29th, a large-scale coordinated operation was deployed, involving 6 squadrons fully trained in decoy tactics. 12 decoy aircraft flew through the bomber stream. The Luftwaffe lost 17 fighters, and American bomber losses were the lowest in 3 months. These statistics became impossible to ignore. Before the implementation of decoy tactics from January to March 15, 1944, average bomber losses per mission were 2%. The average fighter loss ratio was 3.1 in favor of the Germans, German planes shot down versus American, and the survival rate for stragglers was only 27%. After the implementation of decoy tactics, from March 22 to April 15, 1944, average bomber losses per mission dropped to 8%. The fighter loss ratio dramatically shifted to 7.1 in favor of the Americans, and the survival rate for stragglers soared to an incredible 73%. The 39th Fighter Squadron alone claimed 40 confirmed kills in 30 days, a pace typically achieved over half a year. More importantly, bomber crews reported that German fighters had become hesitant, reconsidering their attack decisions and breaking off engagements that would previously have been aggressive pursuits. A captured German pilot, Lieutenant Klaus Hartmann, interrogated on April 3rd, confessed, "We can no longer trust our eyes. What looks weak may be strong. What seems wounded may be a trap. We are ordered to be aggressive, but how can we be aggressive if aggression leads to ambush? They have turned our own tactics against us." The psychological impact proved as powerful as the tactical success. German fighters began completely avoiding aircraft that appeared damaged, which paradoxically meant that genuinely damaged bombers now survived far more often. The Luftwaffe's Wolfpack doctrine, so effective for 4 months, collapsed in just 3 weeks. By April 15th, every fighter group in 8th Fighter Command had at least 1 squadron trained in decoy operations. This tactical innovation spread to the 9th Air Force, then to the Royal Air Force, and subsequently to the Mediterranean theater of operations. Ground crews became true experts at applying theatrical damage that could be quickly removed and reapplied between missions. And throughout this time, in Hangar No. 7, Staff Sergeant Daniel Weiss led a secret workshop. He trained crews in the art of deception, instructing them on how to turn apparent strength into seeming weakness. Weiss taught that sometimes the best camouflage is not stealth, but outright falsehood. The impact of this single innovation saved the lives of approximately 180 bomber crewmen in just 30 days. Final statistics collected after VE Day tell a story that tactical manuals would study for generations. Between March 22 and May 8, 1945, decoy-equipped squadrons achieved 247 confirmed kills with a
2.1 loss ratio in their favor, the highest of any tactical innovation in the European theater of operations. An estimated 890 bomber crewmen survived missions they statistically should not have, directly attributable to the decrease in German aggression caused by decoy tactics. However, human stories meant far more than dry numbers. Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Dickman, who approved the first trial, retired as a brigadier general in 1963. In his unpublished memoirs, he wrote, "We spent years developing better armor, better weapons, better engines, and a sergeant with an art background and a napkin outdid it all with paint and psychology. The best weapon is often what the enemy doesn't expect." Captain James Red Holt flew the first decoy mission, and then 47 more.
He survived the war with 12 confirmed kills and the Distinguished Flying Cross. In 1987, speaking at the Air Force Museum, he said, "People ask if I was scared flying decoy, brother. Every mission was scary, but in that one, I was in control. I wasn't hoping the Germans would miss. I was making sure they saw me. There's power in that." Hub Zemka, the legendary commander who championed this tactic, called it the most innovative use of psychological warfare I saw in combat. His fighter groups adopted decoy tactics as standard operating procedure, spreading the technique throughout the 8th Air Force. And Daniel Weiss, the Brooklyn artist who became a tactical revolutionary, was awarded the Legion of Merit for exceptionally meritorious conduct in the performance of outstanding services. In his citation, classified until 1991, his work was described only as developing advanced camouflage techniques. He requested to be returned to his regular duties as a master mechanic and thrice declined promotion to officer rank. After the war, Weiss returned to the advertising business. He never spoke publicly about the decoy program. When a military historian tracked him down in 1989, he gave a brief interview. "I just solved a visual problem. The Germans were looking for damaged planes. We showed them damaged planes. It wasn't genius. It was just understanding what people see and what's actually there. Advertising taught me that. You want people to see what you want them to see." When asked if he was proud of the innovation, he replied, "I'm proud we saved lives. I'm not proud it was necessary." The fake damage program remained classified until 1991. Have you ever wondered if the most powerful defense could look like absolute vulnerability? That your main adversary isn't what's in front of you, but what they genuinely believe? Many of us face situations where we need to appear weak to ultimately win, but few know exactly how to do it. Today we'll reveal a secret that will revolutionize your understanding of strength and strategy. How can you force a superior enemy to make fatal mistakes without having obvious superiority in technology or numbers? How can you change the course of entire battles using only paint and smoke? For decades, this method was shrouded in the strictest secrecy, and only in 1991 was it declassified. Yet, even today, leading military academies worldwide analyze it as a benchmark example of an asymmetric tactical response. It demonstrates how, through cunning, an enemy can be compelled to alter their doctrine, even without technological superiority. Historical precedents confirm its effectiveness. The Israeli Air Force successfully employed similar approaches in 1973, and the U.S. Navy used fake decoy ship silhouettes during the Gulf War. But perhaps the most striking and poignant legacy of this method comes to us from an entirely unexpected source. A letter written in June 1945 by Lieutenant Robert McIntyre, a B-17 pilot, addressed to a certain Daniel Weiss. Stay with us and watch until the end. We'd be especially grateful for your like and subscription. And of course, don't forget to tell us where you're watching from in the comments. This letter is more than just a thank you. It's a testament to how one extraordinary idea saved not only lives, but entire destinies. In it, Lieutenant McIntyre addresses Daniel Weiss, a man he never met, but whose ingenuity changed his life. Dear Sergeant Weiss, you don't know me. I don't know you.
But on April 7, 1944, my bomber was hit over Magdeburg. We lost 2 engines and fell out of formation. I called for fighters, not expecting anyone to come. Instead, 3 P-47s appeared, painted to look as damaged as we were. The Germans closed in. Your fighters waited. They shot down 4 before the rest fled. All 10 of us came home because of paint, because of deception, because someone realized that looking weak when you're strong is sometimes the best way to be strong. My girl from Baltimore and I are getting married next month. We'll have children. They'll have children. And it's all because you looked at camouflage differently. I'll never meet you, but I wanted you to know. Your idea didn't just save planes, it saved the future. Thank you. Lieutenant Robert McIntyre, 381st Bomb Group. If you're already intrigued by this incredible story, stay with us and watch this video until the end. We would be especially grateful for your like and subscription. And of course, please let us know where you're watching from in the comments. This message eloquently testifies that true breakthroughs in warfare rarely come from those who are expected to deliver them. Often they are born in the minds of outsiders, capable of viewing a problem from an entirely different angle, unburdened by the weight of tradition and established methods. Thus, a commercial artist, observing an aerial battle, saw in it a problem of visual deception. At the same time, experienced fighter pilots in the same situation perceived it solely through the lens of tactical limitations. Daniel Weiss's genius lay not in technical inventions, but in his unique perception. He deeply understood that the outcome of war depends equally on what the enemy believes and what actually exists. The Germans were convinced that damaged aircraft were easy prey. Weiss turned this conviction into their own vulnerability. The lesson learned from this story extends far beyond World War II. In any conflict, the side that controls perception also controls the battlefield. The strongest position doesn't always mean demonstrating overt power. Sometimes it's the ability to make an adversary believe in your weakness right up until you prove otherwise. 40 German fighters fell for this trick of painted damage and theatrical smoke in just 1 month. They became victims of their own belief in what they saw. And someone brilliantly understood that this belief could be weaponized. This isn't just a tactical innovation. It's a profound understanding of the very essence of conflict. The most dangerous enemy is the one underestimated. And sometimes the most powerful weapon is a sketch on a napkin, made by someone no one expected to change the course of history.